We're going to keep this short, sweet, and simple. Since it's a preview, not much to really speak on here. Yeah, that game's pretty much over for the most part. 24-3. Oh snap! They put Drake May in. That's crazy. They gave him playing time. I mean, they're getting blown out. That makes sense. Anywho, you gotta do this. Yeah. They ain't really got a choice. That would have been a good one to use. But that wouldn't have been fine. Okay, we're gonna make this short, sweet, and simple. What's going on, everybody? It's a very late stream tonight, but the good news is we ain't gonna be here long. I doubt we're gonna be here past 12, unless somehow we get stuck on the same topic for 10 minutes, which shouldn't be the case. Yeah, we should be good to go. So what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your night. We've got the week 3 preview here. I honestly could have chosen to do this tomorrow, but I felt like, might as well get it done tonight. Just a quick few things to say, because the Jets got the win. They're going to be 2-1. They wrecked the Patriots. For the Patriots, it's clear as day they're just using Jacoby Brissett to just bite the bullet for Drake May. Like, they're not trying to get Drake May killed out there. This offensive line's not doing a good job, and Jacoby Brissett's out there taking the brute force of how bad their offense is. So they're Patriots are actively protecting Drake May by not putting him out there for the most part to play in these games, because that offensive line has done nothing good for Jacoby Brissett. And he's just basically taking the brute force of these defenses, and while Drake May kind of just sits back and develops, I don't know. Patriots aren't willing to put him at risk right now, which I don't think I hate, but at the same time, there has to be something development-wise that's happening with Drake May in that case. So it is what it is. The Patriots are making their choice to continue to stick with Jacoby Brissett, but we know at some point Drake May is going to start. I think he was in the game for the end of the game. Since they were only getting blown out, it was garbage time. They decided to play Drake May a little, but it is what it is for that. So that's just one thing to say. And then the other thing to say is Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He's still one of the greatest throwers of the football. He's still that guy for the most part. And if there's any quarterback out there, at least towards the older guys, the veteran guys, if there's any quarterback out there that can beat up on the inferior in competition, it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, I looked at this matchup and said, if A-Rod looks half as good as we know he can be, or half as good as he looked during moments of his final season in Green Bay, then yeah, Aaron Rodgers should be able to deal with the with the Patriots defense, which he was. This is easily Aaron Rodgers' greatest game performance since like mid-season. I'm trying to remember what mid-season game I can think of during his final season in Green Bay. But it's been a long time since we've had this type of performance from Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, last year he was out the entire season. And, of course, that performance against the Niners wasn't great. And even though they played well against Tennessee, I felt like he could have been – he wasn't 100% in terms of how he would normally look. So I would say tonight's probably his best performance of the season so far, and his best performance pretty much in a long time when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. And anyway, it is what it is. Jets go to 2-1. There's actual hope for the Jets this year, which, again, if you're a Jets fan, all you ask for is hope. And Aaron Rodgers is bringing that hope. And for the Patriots, I guess they're going to keep rolling with Jacoby Brissett until they feel comfortable in throwing Drake May out there. I don't know. That is their overall choice. They will just have to deal with it. Anyway, I'm not here to talk more about that. We've got a game that we will be playing on Sunday. If I am correct, which I'll have to check, I believe this is a 4:25 game. Yeah, so week 3, yeah, we got 4:25 game in Dallas on Sunday, and of course next week Sunday Night Football against the Bills. With the Ravens being 0-2, This is one of those must-win games. This has to be the game where the Ravens put it together and just go out there and win a football game. They just have to put it together for 60 minutes. You don't need a situation like Kansas City where you played 3 quarters where once again you were struggling and then you put up a fantastic fourth quarter but you just came up short. You don't need a week 2 situation like last week when you were up by 10 playing quality football even though you were making a bunch of mistakes. But you were playing somewhat quality football. You go up by 10 in the fourth quarter and then you just forget how to play football. You blow a 10-point lead and you lose to an inferior team. This isn't one of those type of situations that you can be put in week 3. Now, Dallas plays very well at home. They don't really lose a lot of home games. The last 2 years, they've lost maybe 1 or 2 home games. This isn't exactly a situation where you can just go in and assume they're going to be some easy team to just be able to take down. No, Dallas has talent, and when they're at home, they seem to get some sort of boost from that. So it's going to be a tough matchup no matter how you look at it. But for the Ravens right now, this has to be the beginning of a 3-week fight where the Ravens, if they want to get back into this thing early on, they're gonna have to put up their best performances because they've got the toughest 3-game stretch of the entire season right here. At Dallas, then next week against the Bills, Sunday Night Football, and then the week afterward at Cincinnati. Those 3 games, it feels like the Ravens have to win. Like I was saying in my stream the other day, the Ravens last year, after 5 games, they were 3-2. If the Ravens, after 5 games this year, are 3-2, I feel like you're right back where you need to be. You'll be right back where you need to be because afterward, the schedule does start to soften up a little during the middle part of the season, so you could use that to get yourself back on track to an extent. But these 3 games are where you have to lock in if you're the Ravens, and you've got to be able to win them. And it all starts with this game on Dallas. This game at Dallas against the Cowboys. Now, with Dallas, they're coming off of a humiliating loss to the Saints, who just wrecked them. They're not looking to take a loss here. They're trying to get back on track as well. So this is one of those type of games where both teams are trying to get back on track. For us, we're 0-2. They're at least 1-1. But both teams are trying to get back on track after some tough losses that they dealt with the following week. So this is expected to be somewhat of a difficult matchup. And I would not look at this and say you underestimate any aspect, especially with the way we've played through 2 weeks. We don't have the right to underestimate anybody. Somehow we are like 1.5-point favorites heading into Dallas, which I find interesting. So I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. But this is a matchup the Ravens have to win because it feels like if the Ravens go 0-3 here, that might be the season. You go 0-3 in the AFC, that might be the season. So this is do or die. It's a must-win type of situation, and Baltimore has to play their best football if they want to beat the Cowboys. Now, according to them, they had their best week of practice. Congrats to them. Apparently they addressed all the issues, the miscommunication problems, holding people accountable, the penalties. Everything was discussed and addressed. They've played their best. They've had their best week of practice, so I guess they're good to go for Sunday. Obviously, I think they have one more practice tomorrow, and then, of course, Saturday. Maybe they have one more practice, and then they travel to Dallas on Saturday. I don't know what their schedule is. Either way, they said they had their best week of practice, so they feel comfortable with where they are right now, and they feel confident that that will be able to translate to quality football on Sunday. So we'll see how that works for the Ravens. Anyway, let's get into the aspects of the matchup. Let's start with the Ravens defense because I think that's been the biggest issue or not even been the biggest issue, but the most surprising issue to some people because everything just got flipped in reverse. Coming into the season, we expected the pass rushing aspect to be very poor. We expected that front 7 to struggle to stop the run, and we expect our secondary to be elite. Everything's been flipped upside down through 2 weeks. The pass rush has been elite. You're getting production from Odafe Owe. You're getting production from David Ojabo. You're getting production from Nnamdi Madubuike. You're getting production from Kyle Van Noy. The front 7 is not only getting to the quarterback, they're stopping the run. Through 2 weeks, the front 7 has done their job. They have made sure to make stops and get to the quarterback one way or another. They haven't been the issue. The issue has been the Ravens secondaries. They've given up. They've let quarterbacks through 2 weeks on play action passes. Quarterbacks are 15 of 15 against our secondary. Our secondary has given up about 7, I believe it's 7 20-plus yard plays through 2 weeks of football. They didn't do anything like that until week 9 of last year. Something's wrong with the secondary. Miscommunications, however you look at it, is however you look at it. And we talked about Kyle Hamilton and how he hasn't looked like himself. Well, our suspicions were right. We talked about him potentially having an injury. And yes, he was injured. He was dealing with a back injury. He finally showed up on the injury report. He was dealing with a back injury. He did miss a little time in practice. He was back today. And I believe he was also back yesterday. But, yeah, Kyle Hamilton's dealing with a back injury. There's injuries that are starting to pile up. A majority of these guys are expected to play on Sunday. I don't think Kyle Hamilton's going to miss any time. He's expected to play on Sunday. It's just he's dealing with an injury. So it makes sense why Hamilton doesn't look like himself, because he's dealing with a back injury. Now it makes sense with some of the way he's played through these 2 weeks. He's obviously dealing with something. We all knew that. But yeah, the secondary themselves, they haven't played quality football. There's been a lot of miscommunication, a lot of guys just giving up huge plays in open space, a lot of guys getting beat in coverage one-on-one. It hasn't looked great for the Ravens secondary. That's been the biggest issue with this defense. You can look at the linebacking core and really say Roquan hasn't played his best, Malik Harrison shouldn't be on the field, and Trent Simpson's doing exactly what you expect him to do. But really, it's the secondary that's the most glaring issue on the team through 2 weeks. They need to play better. They cannot continue to give up big plays. That's what we talked about, limiting the big plays. They have not done a good job in limiting the big plays. All they're doing right now is giving up big plays. They're giving up big plays of 20-plus yards. They cannot continue to do that. So that's an issue with them that needs to be fixed. Offensively, we know there's a bunch of things that's just wrong here. Obviously, it starts with the offensive line. The right side of the offensive line is a problem. The right side of the offensive line has been horrible, and it has been poor in terms of execution, it's been poor in terms of blocking, and it's been poor in terms of personnel selection. That right side of the offensive line is not good enough to get it done. Falele has been terrible. Makari struggled. It hasn't looked great at all. Now, Rosengarten, again, he is starter quality when it comes to pass protection. When it comes to run blocking, he hasn't been great. But when it comes to pass protection, that is his bread and butter. Rosengarten is great at pass protection. So, again, I don't know what the personnel decision is going to be in terms of who's going to be on the offensive line. But me personally, I would start Roger Rosengarten. I feel like that needs to be the guy that starts. He's much, much better at pass protection than Rosengarten. But it is what it is. And then with the right guard situation, there's nothing we can do about it. Harbaugh's not going to start Ben Cleveland, so Falele is just going to go out there to struggle. I don't know what else to tell you. You either ask this guy, like either you put in Ben Cleveland, or you just play Falele and just hope for the best. I don't know what to do with that. I can't say anything else about that. It is what it is at this point. So yeah, that's been the glaring issue. And then offensively, it's also been an issue with the miscommunication. Like we're seeing it at times that they're not in sync. Lamar and Mark, like when it comes to Lamar and Mark Andrews, they're not in sync. Bateman, he's had moments here and there. Obviously, the pick happened on his watch, but other than that, he caught the other passes he had. Nelson Aguilar is just an outlier out there. We don't even know what he's doing. Zay Flowers is balling out. They're going to continue to get him the football, which is the smart thing to do. Isaiah likely should have been more involved in week 2. He was involved in week 1. He should have been more involved in week 2. It just feels like the Ravens aren't utilizing their talents to their maximum capability, especially with like Derrick Henry in this situation. Because again, Derrick Henry was balling out in the second half, and we gave him 1 carry in the fourth quarter. You brought him here to close out games, and we're not using him in closeout moments. I don't understand the logic of this team, but clearly this team, they want to do things their way, even if it's a mess, and it's costing them football games. So, yeah, there's just some of the weaknesses. Back to defense. I just wanted to point out the weaknesses at first. Back to the defense. When we look at a matchup perspective this week, going up against Dallas, I think it's going to be very interesting. Because the Ravens, this iteration of the Ravens defense has never played against Dak Prescott. In fact, the Ravens as a whole has only played against Dak Prescott 1 time. That was his rookie year in 2016, and we're in Dallas at that point. And that was the year of the cursed tens. 2016 was the year of the cursed tens. That was back when the Ravens offense would get going on a hot start. They would be like up 10-0. So they would get an easy 10-0 lead, and then the offense would die for the rest of the game. And I do not understand why they just forgot to play football after going up 10 in 2016, but they constantly lost football games like that. They would go up 10, and then the offense would just die. And we'd be looking around like, what happened? All of a sudden, the things that Flacco was doing well, he just stopped doing. All of a sudden, the things that was executing at the highest level defensively, it just stopped happening. Like, the team shut down after the Ravens went up 10-0 in 2016. The year of the cursed tens was so frustrating. I'll never forget that Bears game. Oh, my God. It was so frustrating in 2016 watching this team get so many early 10-point leads and then forget how to play football. Like, I just don't remember. And we were just looking at times like, bro, Flacco, you were doing this early in the first quarter, and then you guys just stopped doing this. What's going on? It was so conflicting to deal with that. Anyway, we've only played Dak Prescott one time, and that's been in 2016. So I'm interested in seeing how our defense is going to respond to Dak Prescott, because not a single soul on this defense has really gone up against Dak Prescott on a consistent basis. If we're going to name individuals, I would probably say... in terms of guys who may have gone up against Dak Prescott, Roquan Smith probably did. I would probably look at that. Roquan Smith, of course, he was with Chicago. He might have done that. I'm trying to think of anybody else on the defense that I could probably look at. Marcus Williams, when he was with the Saints, he may have gone up against Dak Prescott. Yeah, I'm really trying to think. I think those are really the only two I can name. Maybe there's a third person I wouldn't fully remember right now. But I think the only two that have gone up against Dak Prescott, at least in the last few years, would have to be Marcus Williams when he was with the Saints before he came here, and Roquan Smith when he was with Chicago before he came here. Maybe there was a potential matchup that happened there. I wouldn't fully remember, but I'm pretty sure those are the only two players on our defense that's gone up against Dak Prescott in recent years. So this is going to be a blank slate. We have not gone up against Dak Prescott. This defense has not gone up against him. I don't know how they're going to play against him and how they're going to play against the Cowboys offense. Now, obviously, the Cowboys' main threat, no question, and our main focus is going to have to be CeeDee Lamb. If you let CeeDee Lamb go off, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day. I don't know who's going to be the person to cover him. I think you're going to have to use, you might have to look to double him. You might have to look to double him. CeeDee Lamb is that guy. He's one of the best receivers in football right now. He has emerged to be that legit star. He is a legit number one weapon. You cannot try to play one-on-one with CeeDee Lamb. They may look to try to double him. But if CeeDee Lamb gets going, it's going to be a long day for the Ravens defense. And with the way the secondary is playing right now, if they let that guy go, it's going to be a long day, man. So CeeDee Lamb is the aspect you have to look for. They're going to try to run the ball with Ezekiel Elliott. I'll have to see how that goes. Our run defense has actually been pretty good, so I'm not too overly concerned with that. But, yeah, CeeDee Lamb is my main focus on the offense. And, again, you're going to want to try to get to Dak and put pressure on him. But, Dak has the ability to skate the pocket, make some plays there. And if he needs to take off, he can. But, obviously, he's not really a runner like that. But Dak makes some great decisions at times, and he can extend plays when he needs to. But, CeeDee Lamb is going to be a problem. So if I was to put some keys to the game that the Ravens need to do defensively, number one has to be stopping the big plays. They need to stop CeeDee Lamb from going off. So number one, stop the big plays. They have to stop CeeDee Lamb. No question they got to do that. Number two, they're going to have to force turnovers. You're going to have to force Dak to throw some picks. You got to take away possessions from the Cowboys offense. That's the best way you're going to be able to help out your team and get extra possessions back to Lamar. So I think, yeah, stopping the big plays, specifically with CeeDee Lamb, and forcing turnovers. Other than that, try to stop Ezekiel Elliott from going off and just make sure he's just stopped so they can be one-dimensional. If you can just make the Cowboys one-dimensional, you put the pressure on Dak Prescott, force him to make mistakes, you get a couple picks out of that, and you limit CeeDee Lamb from being highly productive, the defense would have done its job, and you'll have a great chance to win. Now, let's flip offensively, because, again, there's really not much to speak on this aspect here. I said this last week when I was talking about the Raiders. I said the game was going to come down to the Raiders D-line versus the Ravens offensive line. If the Raiders defensive line gets the best of the Ravens offensive line, it was going to be a long day, and the path to winning would open up for the Raiders. I said the only way the Raiders would be able to beat us is if the D-line is dominating and they're getting to Lamar Jackson. That would give them the opportunity to beat the Ravens. And guess what happened? They did exactly that. The Raiders D-line dominated our offensive line. They got to Lamar several times, and they were able to pull off an upset due to that. So the biggest issue that I thought could lead to a Ravens loss ultimately led to a Ravens loss. I think the same situation can happen here. Last week was Max Crosby. This week is Micah Parsons. Now, Micah Parsons was on this show, I think it was, yesterday when he said this, and he was speaking on Mike McCarthy potentially, having Micah Parsons spy Lamar Jackson. Let's be real. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that they're going to actually use Micah Parsons to spy Lamar Jackson. That would be dumb. That would not work to the strengths of the Cowboys defense, and that would actually benefit the Ravens if they used Micah Parsons as a spy on Lamar Jackson. So I'm not buying that. I don't think anybody's buying that. But at the same time, we're talking about Mike McCarthy. I really wouldn't be surprised if Mike McCarthy tries to pull some nonsense like that. The best thing the Ravens can hear is that Micah Parsons is going to spy Lamar Jackson. You're going to have him as a quarterback spy instead of having him rush the passer? Yeah, I'm not buying that. The Cowboys watched film. They saw what Crosby did last week. Micah Parsons can do the exact same thing. There's not a soul that's going to stop him from doing what he's trying to do in terms of getting to the quarterback. So Micah Parsons is not going to be spying Lamar. I do not believe that. Instead, he will be looking to rush the passer and try to get to Lamar that way. If we have a repeat of last week where the D-line is dominating the offensive line of the Ravens, we're going to lose this game. That's just the simple fact. If the offensive line cannot protect Lamar Jackson, if the offensive line cannot block and create holes for Derrick Henry, there's nothing we can do on offense. So once again, just like last week, this week is going to come down to the offensive line doing their job. Because if they're not protecting Lamar Jackson, they're not creating holes for Derrick Henry to run the ball, we're just not going to be able to do anything against the Cowboys defense. Now, it's not like the Cowboys defense have a lot of stars. You look at Micah Parsons. You look at Trayvon Diggs. Now, of course, if they would have had Bland, that would have been another weapon to use. But Bland is injured right now. He's probably gone for half the season, so he won't be playing in this game. But they do have a few names on that defense that you can look at that will be trying to make it difficult. But it comes down to the D-line. If the Cowboys D-line is able to dominate the Ravens offensive line, we have no shot to win this game. We don't. Because they're just going to keep getting to Lamar. They're going to put the pressure on him. They're going to stop the run. So Derrick Henry's not going to be able to go off. Lamar's not going to have time to throw. He's going to be getting sacked. And it's just going to be a long game. So the offensive line has to do their job. Also, these penalties have got to stop. The amount of penalties the Ravens have racked up through 2 weeks is just embarrassing. It's just unexcusable. It's a sign of an undisciplined team. Excuse me. It is a sign of an undisciplined team because disciplined teams don't have this many penalties. But the Ravens, they're racking up the penalties. They are such an undisciplined team, and we're watching it happen. These penalties need to stop. It's killing them. These penalties are hurting drives. So if we're going to talk about keys to the game here, number one, protect Lamar Jackson at all costs. So the offensive line needs to do their job. If the offensive line gets beat again this week the way they did last week, we are going to lose this football game. So number one, offensive line needs to do their job. Protect Lamar Jackson. Number two, you need to establish the run. You have Derrick Henry. You have the tools to utilize him and get him in the best position to get a great running game out of him and give him the opportunities to be Derrick Henry. I keep talking about how we're not utilizing Derrick Henry the right way. We are not utilizing Derrick Henry the way he should be utilized. If we were, this wouldn't be a problem. But they need to find a way to get Derrick Henry going one way or another. Number three, these receivers have to get the opportunities and ball out when they get the ball thrown to them. You need big plays from your receivers. You need big plays from your tight ends. These guys need to show up and play well. No question, we need that from them. That has to be a priority. That has to be a priority. So we need Zay Flowers to continue to get the ball fed to him. We need Mark Andrews to be involved in the offense. We need Isaiah Likely to be involved in the offense. We need to get the ball to these playmakers and let them go make plays. So protect Lamar Jackson, establish the running game with Derrick Henry, and get the ball in the hands of these playmakers and let them make plays. And that comes down to the play calling as well. The play calling needs to do their job. If we're not getting great play calling, it's just not going to happen. And of course, last but not least, don't turn the ball over. Play a clean game of football. Obviously, you turn the ball over, you give extra possessions to Dak Prescott and that Cowboys offense to just do damage to you. So yeah, the offensive keys to the game, protect Lamar Jackson, establish the run game, and get the ball in the hands of our playmakers and let them go make plays. And of course, play a clean football game. So overall, if we can do these things offensively and defensively, we should be able to win this game. But at the same time, with the way the Ravens have looked through 2 weeks, you don't know what you're going to get from them on Sunday. But if they do these things, they should be able to get a victory in Dallas. They'll go to 1-2 on the season if they can get the job done. Final predictions, I'm going to be honest, I don't have a score. I do not have a score for this game because I don't know what I'm going to get from the Ravens. I do not know how the Ravens offense is going to look. I don't know if this is going to be a week where they put it together and score 30-plus points, or if they struggle and they have like 15. I don't know what we're going to get from the Ravens offense. So I'm going to leave it open and say it's going to be a tightly contested game. It's going to be a close game that comes down the wire, similar to last week, where it's going to come down to who executes better down the stretch in key situations. That's just what it's going to come down to, and we just have to see how the Ravens perform in those moments because they haven't been great in those moments through 2 weeks. It's been poor. So we have to see late game execution from the Ravens as a whole, and it comes down to that. I'll pick the Ravens to win this game just because I feel like there's such a high level of desperation for the Ravens right now. They have to play desperate. You're down 0-2. You're down 0-2 in the season. So I feel like the Ravens have to play desperate, and they're going to play desperate. They're going to find a way to win this game. They'll go to 1-2, and they'll have to immediately turn their attention to Buffalo because that's a team you've got to focus on. Sunday Night Football against the Bills. You'll be at home, so that helps you out. But against the Bills, that's going to be a big test for the Ravens to try to get themselves back to where they need to get to. Because if they can get back to 2-2, that at least helps out. But you got to focus on this game Sunday. They got to get the job done. I believe they're going to beat the Cowboys. I think it'll be a close game. Let's say the Ravens win by a field goal or maybe they'll either win by a field goal or by like 5 points. Either way, I think it's going to be a close game. I'll take the Ravens. I think the offense is going to figure out something. They're going to work to some of their strengths. I don't think they're going to fix all the problems. I think the offensive line will still be an issue, but they'll find a way to fix some of the miscommunication we're seeing with Lamar and the receivers in terms of the play calling and stuff like that. We'll get some things going with the passing game. We'll get some things going with the running game with Derrick Henry. Offensive line will still probably be a question mark. Defense will be able to get to Dak Prescott a few times. The secondary, I think, is going to hold its own. They're going to give up some big plays to CeeDee Lamb. It's just bound to happen. They'll probably give up a touchdown to him, but I think they'll be good enough to help us maintain a decent lead or be able to hold on against the Cowboys. So I'll pick the Ravens to win this game. They'll go to 1-2, and we'll see what happens with that. Not much really needs to be said here because I just don't know what to make of this Ravens team right now. They just have all the pieces to really be great, and they're just beating themselves in these games, and I don't know what it's going to take for them to not do that. It is what it is at the end of the day. So that's pretty much all I have here. I'm going to read some of you guys' comments before I head on out. Like I said, it was only supposed to be quick. I just wanted to give my preview here. And of course, I don't got my glasses, and the chat's a little bit far away from me because I have to be a certain distance from the camera. So I'm actually going to be leaning up while I read some of these comments. Of course, put up or shut up for the Ravens. Absolutely, it has to be one of those type of weeks. Either they show up, get the job done, go to 1-2, and try to get back into the season, or they fall to 0-3, and we can really talk about this team missing the playoffs. But it is what it is. What's going on, Daniel? What's going on, Joshua? This is a must-win game for the Ravens. You don't start the season 0-3. If they start the season 0-3, the season's over. The season's over at 0-3. Daniel Faalele done united the entire fan base like Villanueva. That's not a good thing. When the fan base has to be united against a certain individual, that's not a good thing. Yeah, secondary's been bad. What's going on, man? This game, man, if we lose this game, it's over. Season is over. Must win. Absolutely, I believe it's a must win. You go down 0-3, you're pretty much cooked at that point. What's going on, Josh? I'm going to be at the Bills game. I'm going to try to get some fire Harbaugh and start Cleveland and Rosengarten chance going. Good luck with that, man. We have the same talking points every year. It's sad because we have the same head coach that's been here for 17 years. And it's been the same philosophy for this football team for the last 17 years. So when you got a guy that's not learning, that's not changing, that's not improving, that's not growing, you're going to talk about the same old issues with the Ravens because it's the same guy doing the same things over and over again, making the exact same mistakes, not learning from them, and saying the exact same things in those press conferences over and over and over again for 17 years now. So obviously it's going to be the same talking points because it's the same guy making the same mistakes year in and year out. Nothing you can do about it. It's do or die for y'all. Absolutely got to get it done for the most part. Micah is going to eat. If Micah Parsons eats, that's going to be a long day for the Ravens offense. Will our corners be able to stop CD? Probably not. CD's going to get his. He's going to get his. But they're going to have to try to limit him as much as possible. You're not going to stop a top-tier wide receiver from going off, but you can at least limit him to an extent. Harbaugh versus McCarthy, battle of the rusty rings. The worst part is I don't even know who's worse in this situation. Who would you take in that conversation? I could see Harbaugh doing dumb things to cost his football team, and I can see McCarthy doing dumb things to cost his football team. So I don't even know what you look at this point. Both these coaches are untrustable in key situations. So I don't know who to really take in that matchup. I think Henry goes off this week. Cowboys' run defense is not good. They can run on them. Again, it all comes down to the offensive line creating holes to utilize Derrick Henry, but more so than that, it comes down to the Ravens utilizing Derrick Henry the right way. They keep trying to run him in between the gaps when he's a zone runner. He is a downhill zone runner. Use some outside zone runs with him. You should be using zone runs. Stop trying to have him run between the gaps. You got him standing next to Lamar Jackson in the shotgun here, handing him the ball off from there and having him try to run between the gaps. That's not going to work, especially not with this offensive line. He is a zone runner. Utilize him that way. If the Ravens learn to utilize Derrick Henry the right way, we're going to have no problems. And they started to do some of that in the second half, and he was balling out. Again, in the second half, he was averaging 7 yards a carry. The Ravens had figured something out, and they just went away from it. That's what they always do. They go away from things that work because they're such a smart football team. If we put Rosengarten at right tackle, we average 30 points per game. You can make that argument, but Faalele is still there as well. So I don't know how much you would look at that and say, yeah, we'd get 30 points per game, even with Faalele in the lineup. Ravens by 21, I don't agree with that, but we'll see what happens. If we ever move on from Mr. John, we can have Bill Belichick, Ben Johnson, or Clint Kubiak. That would have to be an off-season thing. I don't think Clint Kubiak's going to just leave the Saints right now. If you were to get a Clint Kubiak, yeah, he's the offensive coordinator right now for the Saints. He wouldn't just leave right now and then just get a head coaching job. I think that would have to be something that happens in the offseason. Again, as much as you guys hate it, John Harbaugh's not going to be fired mid-season. They're not doing that. If he was to be gone after this year, it would have to be in the offseason. Same way they did with Greg Roman. Despite the issues that we saw during his final weeks in Baltimore, they still let him finish out the season. So John's going nowhere this year. At the very least, he might be gone after this season, but I doubt that. I expect him to be back next year. They're not firing him. What if you go 0-3 and then go 13-4? That would be a major turnaround. That would be a crazy major turnaround, but I would still have the same issues with the Ravens. I'll be like, hey, they made the playoffs, but the same issues that stopped them from winning in the postseason are still there. It's not going to go away or change. They'll probably still lose in January, even if they do go 13-4, unless they address those major issues, which they probably won't. But it's not impossible for the Ravens to do that. Again, I remember back in 2015 when the 1-5 Kansas City Chiefs won 10 straight games and went from 1-5 to 11-5 and in the playoffs. It's possible. It's just not easy. If we don't win this game, then I hate to say season is over, 0-3, and tank the rest of the season. No franchise is tanking. No franchise that's trying to compete is going to even attempt to tank. So this idea that they're going to tank, everyone always wants to say tank the rest of the season. No team's doing that. I don't care how bad of a start you have. Nobody's tanking. This is a team that was in the AFC Championship game last year. They're not going to tank. Even if they're having a bad season, they're not going to tank. I know fans are just so quick to say if we're having a bad season, just tank for our higher draft picks. These teams and franchises have way too much pride to tank. Some of these franchises are not going out there to actively tank. If you're supposed to be a team that was expected to be in contention and now you're having a bad season, you're not going to sit there and be like, all right, just cool, it's cool, just tank. We'll just tank. It's all right. You think Lamar's going to sit there and let them tank the season if we start 0-3? He's not going to let that happen. You think he wants to waste a year of his prime tanking the rest of the season? No, that's not going to happen on his watch, even if they do go 0-3. So this idea that the Ravens will tank, no, it's not going to happen. Even if they can start the season 0-5, they're still not going to tank. This is the same franchise that was 2-6 at one point in 2015 and was still actively trying to make a case for them to go on a run and make the playoffs at 10-6. They were saying things like that. They're not going to tank. These next 3 games are bare minimum, these next 3 games at bare minimum. They need to come out of the Bengals game 2-3 at the absolute worst. Hopefully they figure it out and get out of this stretch 3-2. They need to. They'll have to figure something out, man. 3-2 is the hope. 2-3, you could settle for that because at least you'll still be where you need to be and you'll have a chance to get back to 500. If the Ravens go 0-3, season's done. Bengals can get away with that since they got Joe Burrow. The assumption that the Bengals can get away with that because they have Joe Burrow is just a wrong statement to make. You can't just assume, they got Joe Burrow. Just because they did it once does not mean they can do it again. Every season is different. Every season is different. You think Bengals fans like having their team start 0-2? Why would you want to start off in a hole and be like, it's fine. We can just assume the Bengals will be fine because they've been 0-2 before with Joe Burrow and they won. No. Every season is different. Just because in the past they were able to go to the playoffs after starting 0-2 does not mean they can do it again. I don't think Bengals fans are heading into this weekend believing that if they lose their football game, they'll be fine. We've got Joe Burrow. We'll be able to come back. No. There will be actual calls for Zach Taylor's job if they go 0-3. Bengal fans are not going to sit there and be like, we got Joe Burrow, we'll be cool. They're going to be like, no, fire Zach Taylor. His incompetence has been holding this team back. Watch the dumb things they're doing. So no, don't just assume because in previous years they were able to come back from the 0-2 start that all of a sudden, because they got Burrow here, they're going to get it done again. No, every season's different. Every single season is unique. Every situation is unique. Just because they did in the past does not mean they're going to do it in the present. That's just not how that works. When's my next live? I have no clue. I'm hopeful I'll be here for the Sunday game. I should be here for the Sunday game, but we'll have to see. I don't, unless something happens, I'll be here Sunday to live stream the Ravens-Cowboys game. It's crazy how Ben Cleveland would easily make this offensive line better, but Harbaugh keeps thinking he's Bill Belichick. I mean, even if he was Bill Belichick, it would be a stupid decision for Bill Belichick to actively keep a player that's better than the player he's throwing out there. It'd be stupid for him to actively keep that guy on the bench and then put a weaker player in the offensive line just because of his ego. That'd be a dumb decision for Bill Belichick to do. Yeah, we saw that happen with what's his name? Oof. I'm trying to remember. It's been so long. It's so long. I'm trying to remember the corner that he did that to, because he did that in the Super Bowl against the Eagles, where he just didn't play him. I'm trying to remember his name. I'm going to look that up quickly, too. Malcolm Butler. I didn't even look it up. It came up. I was just about to look it up. Malcolm Butler. People still get on Bill Belichick's case for not playing Malcolm Butler against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. That's just not a smart decision. Just because it's Bill Belichick does not make it a smart decision. So, Harbaugh thinking he's Bill Belichick by not playing Ben Cleveland is just dumb. Even Bill Belichick in that situation, if he didn't play Ben Cleveland in that situation, he would be seen as dumb for not doing that. He'd be criticized. Who do you think is a real threat in the North? In the AFC North? The Steelers are always a real threat in the AFC North. That's just how it's always been. And they've been kicking the crap out of us. Yeah, we've beaten ourselves, but who cares? They've been beating us like the last 3 to 4 years. We're 1-7 in the last 8 matchups we've had. Now, of course, half those matchups Lamar has not played, either due to injury or him resting because we got the number 1 seed or whatever. But we're 1-7 against them. And I believe Lamar has played in 4 of those matchups, so he's 1-3 against the Steelers. and the team as a whole is just 1-7 against Pittsburgh in the last 4 years. So I would have to look at the Steelers always being that threat just because of what they do defensively. From a talent perspective, you got to give respect to the Browns. They have so much talent. If they ever get that talent to fully maximize their capabilities, the Browns can be a threat. And of course, the Bengals will always be an issue there because of Joe Burrow. But somehow Baltimore has done a good job in being able to beat the Bengals. They match up very well against Cincinnati, and they've won a majority of those matchups. So I would have to say the Steelers. It's always been the Steelers. It'll probably continue to be the Steelers. Been a Chiefs fan since 2013. It's been hard trying to defend myself as not a bandwagon fan. Yeah, that's going to happen when you become a fan of a dynasty. Like, if you were there before the dynasty happens, everyone's just going to assume you're a bandwagon fan. It's the same thing for Patriots fans when they were fans of the Patriots in the 90s. They were Patriots fans in the 90s, despite the fact that that team was garbage and they sucked, other than like 1 or 2 years. But as soon as Brady came on the scene with Belichick and all of a sudden they were winning Super Bowls, everyone just assumed in the 2000s, if you were a Patriots fan, you're a bandwagon fan. Even though there were guys that were there in the 90s that were dealing with this awful Patriots team. It is what it is. You just got to deal with it. My worst fear is Harbaugh wasting all of Lamar's prime. I don't know if I could forgive the Ravens. If he's here for that long, that's just incompetence on the franchise. Aaron Rodgers learned how to play quarterback from watching Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle last year. That's hilarious. That's really hilarious. That's a funny take to give. That's a real funny take to give. Anyway, guys, I'm pretty much going to end it here. Like I said, it was supposed to be a relatively quick stream. We're only really here to talk about the Cowboys and the Ravens, give our take on that. We'll just have to see what happens Sunday. Just to reiterate, offensively, protect Lamar Jackson. Find a way to initiate the run game with Derrick Henry. Get the ball in the hands of these playmakers and let them go make plays. And play a clean football game. That's what you need offensively. Defensively, limit the big plays, specifically with CeeDee Lamb. Put pressure on Dak Prescott and force him to make mistakes, which you can utilize to pick off and get the ball back to the offense. Limit Ezekiel Elliott from getting anything going in the run game and force the Cowboys to be one-dimensional. And, yeah, that was pretty much it for the most part. If we get those things to happen, the Ravens should be able to win the game. But who knows how things are going to go. Oh, yeah, offensively, yeah, play a clean game in terms of limiting penalties as well. Not just turnovers, just limit penalties in general. They need to play a clean game and be disciplined. But, yeah, other than that, we'll see what happens. I think the Ravens can win a close game here, but I don't know what Baltimore team we're going to get on Sunday. Hopefully we get the right Baltimore team in Dallas so we can get our first win of the season, but we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. Lamar Jackson was a project draft pick. We didn't think he'd be this great, but the 2019 through 2022 off seasons was plenty of time to build around him, but barely did. Yeah, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. They had the opportunity to build a fantastic offense around him during his time, during his rookie contract. They didn't do it. They didn't give him the proper weapons. They didn't fully give him the tools to succeed before he got his second contract. So now we're just in a situation where we got to compete with what we have. And you know his contract's going to kick in about 2 years. So it is what it is. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end it here. I believe the Ravens will get the victory. I believe the Ravens will go to 1-2. I think it's going to be a close game, but we'll just have to see how things go. Been watching you since the 2019 Chiefs Super Bowl. Keep it up. You're doing great work. Appreciate that. Do you think time is running out for Lamar? Sure, if you believe that. Dude's 27 years old, but if you believe time is running out for him, by all means, make that assumption. But yeah, I'm going to end it here. I'm going to probably, what is it? It's 11:54. I'm going to go to sleep. You know, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to watch something before I go to sleep because I got work tomorrow, so I got to be up in the morning. But yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in for this quick stream. We just wanted to give our takes out and our thoughts about this Ravens-Cowboys preview. And we'll just go from there. You know, we'll see what happens, guys. Anyway, you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Be sure to stay safe and peace out.